Alright, welcome everybody to another mixing video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So for the next quite a few videos, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a mix start to finish with nothing but stock plugins, and then another mix of the same song with Waves plugins, and then another mix of the same song with Slate digital plugins, excuse me. So let me just elaborate on that a little bit. I say nothing but those plugins, but there's going to be a few other plugins, just a few. So for my bass amp sound, just to be fair, I'm going to use a UAD one on all of them. Okay. And on the drums, I'm going to use a phase alignment plugin called M Auto Align by Meld Productions. And since Slate Digital does have a reverb but doesn't have a delay, what I'm going to do on this song on all three of the mixes is I'm going to use the same reverb and the same delay. And the reverb that I'm going to use is my UAD EMT 140 plate, and the delay that I'm going to use is going to be the Lexicon PSP 42. Just so that way there is a constant, so that way, just to make things a little bit fair. Slate Digital is coming out with a delay soon, but for the sake of this video, I'll just use the same reverb and delay just to make things fair. Okay, so I'm going to start the first video with stock plugins, and I'm going to start on the mix bus. So let's listen to a little bit of this track, and then we'll go ahead and add some mix bus plugins. And this is actually something that I haven't done in about a year or so. I've been using a lot of Slate plugins and Waves plugins, so this is going to be as interesting for me as it is for you. But the stock Cubase stuff is great, so let's get started, and we'll hit up the mix bus.
Going through this world, traveling, I done seen some things before I've learned my lesson. I know you're tired, simply the only way I know to give you what you need. So please hold on tight, you're on the mind for you. I will, wherever I lay, now you should know I won't lose my way. You love always saves me, you love always saves me. Wherever I go, wherever I lay, now you should know I won't lose my way. You love always saves me, you love always saves me. Ooh, oh, oh. Ooh, oh, oh. Ooh, oh, oh. We are sitting in this room, finally alone, with a peace of mind that I've been searching for. And all I seem to hear is the sound of your laughter. And if you believe that I don't think about you, you should know it's hard to be so far without you. And when you hold my hand, it doesn't matter how far I may be. You know I'm home. I was there like the start. Gift of the present always lives in your heart. So let's enjoy our time. be. No, I'm home. I was there like a start. Gift of the present always lives in your heart. So let's enjoy our time. I'ma lean on you, you lean on me. So good when we're together. But now you should know I won't lose my way. And love always saves me. Love always saves me. Wherever I go, wherever I lay, now you should know I won't lose my way. Love always saves me. Love always saves me. Ooh, oh, oh. Ooh, oh, oh. Ooh, oh, oh. We are. Ooh, oh, oh. Ooh, oh, oh. We are. We Don't forget it, don't forget it. Don't forget it, don't forget it. We are. Don't forget it, don't forget it. We are. Don't forget it, don't forget it. We are. We are. No matter how far I'm from you, baby. Oh, yeah. We are. We are. We are. Don't you know that?
Okay, so let's talk about what I did there a little bit. So first, since what I usually do is I run the whole mix through a console emulation, Cubase doesn't have a console emulation, so I figured I'd run it through a tube saturation. And this was actually a lot more or a lot less subtle than I remembered this plugin being. So I had to bring the drive all the way down to like 5%. I tried to drive it a little bit harder, but I got a little bit too much distortion as I would like on an entire mix. So I brought that down just to get some of that tube warmth and some of the harmonics. Then I went over to this EQ here, and I high passed a little bit too high at first, so I brought it back down to 21 hertz because you're not really going to hear anything right there anyway. Then I went and cut some of the low mids, 1 dB at about 550 because that was sounding a little muddy. I took out a little bit of 4K because that was a little bit nasally sounding. And then I did a slight shelf at around 8K just to bring a little bit of that sparkle in. Then I went over to my VST dynamics and I got about somewhere between 2 dB to 3 dB of gain reduction on the whole mix, and then brought the makeup gain in because this tube saturation, it actually lowered the output 6 dB. So I tried to make that up, and I didn't want to do the whole 6 dB with just one plugin because I didn't want to hit my tape saturation, or excuse me, my tape emulation too hard. So I then went to the tape and just added just a little bit of that saturation across the whole frequency range, and then added a little bit more of the gain, excuse me. I experimented with this dual mode, but to me it sounded better with just the single. And then I came back in after and added another EQ with a slight bump here at about 60 hertz, just to get some of that, low end back in there. And then finally, I added a plate across the whole mix, really, really subtly mixed in there, just to give it a sense of space. And it was a little bit more difficult than when I use my Slate plugins. I'll be honest. And I think that's really what you pay for when you buy your third-party plugins, is to just get the sound that's in your head right away. But all in all, I really like the sound that this mix bus chain gave me. I've never used this mix bus chain, but I was just trying to kind of treat it how I would normally treat it, but just using the stock plugins. And of course, there's a few compromises, but all in all, this sounds pretty good. At the very end of this mix, I'll probably move this tape down here. Or, excuse me, I won't move the tape. I will add a brick wall limiter at the end just to bring the level up and get it up to commercial standards there. So, as far as mix bus chain, this is it. So, just to recap real quick, some tube saturation to kind of take the place of my console emulation. Some cleaning up EQ. Little bit of compression. Little bit more EQ just to add a little bit of that weight in there. Tape saturation. And then, as I almost always do with a track like this, some reverb across the whole mix. Very, very subtly mixed in. So, this actually surprised me how well this chain worked. Do I like it as much as my normal chain? Not really. But if I had to use just these plugins, I think I could get away with it. So, thank you so very much for watching. I know that this video was kind of long because, you know, I'm getting the feel of these plugins too. So, bear with me on that. The next video will be on drums. I'll start on the drum bus, and then I'll go to the channel level and work on that. So, thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned some different ways of using these stock Cubase plugins, and I hope to see you in the next videos, including the Waves plugins and the Slate Digital plugins. So, thank you once again. I hope that you liked this video. Please give this a like if you did like it. If you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion, as I always say. If you really liked it, please subscribe. Thank you so very much one last time, and I hope to see you in the next video.